Welcome into this episode of Coach's Corner. Jordan Woodruff with you. Great to have you along. Today's episode brought to you by Aftershave Barbering, and we're joined by cross-country coach Wendy Landes. And hey, how's it going? And you guys have been pretty busy the last couple of weeks.
We have been. It seems like we go once or twice a week, depending on where we're going, either junior high, JV, or varsity meets. But we just ran a conference yesterday, kind of getting that culmination point of our season where all we have left is regionals and hopefully state.
Well, let's first talk about how the conference went. Talked about some of your good individual performances and overall as a team finishing third.
We did. Both teams, both girls and boys, finished third, and then our JV team also finished third. It was super windy. I can't tell you. It was windy, and it was more hilly, I think, than they wished that it could have been. It was on a golf course over in Enid. But Gabby Alva was one of my varsity girls. She has actually earned all conference honors, finishing sixth in that field. And then I had two varsity boys, Wesley Vaughn and Adam King, both honorable mention all conference, placing 11th and 13th. And also Avery Humphrey, she's kind of newcomer, out of nowhere, came and started running cross country this year. She was 11th yesterday, being honorable mention all conference as well. So it was a really good race. I think they did some good things despite the elements.
Well, and postseason. It started with that in a way, but you get into the state side of things with the regionals coming up. So let's talk about that. That'll be coming up here in just 10 days or so, right? So
October 26th. So we have a week from Saturday to get those 7 on each ready for regionals. Looks to be a pretty good field. We find out Friday actually where we're going. So it's either going to be Owasso hosting or Westmore hosting. So we kind of find out where we're going then. We enter our rankings in at the beginning of the week when they were due, and so we just kind of have to wait and see which direction we go.
Is there a preference of the direction you go?
We've been to Owasso every year, and they talked about balancing the regions because sometimes you want to think that one's more heavy than the other, but when you look at the other, you're like, well, that one was just as hard. So it's just kind of where you're going to go. We've ran the Owasso course a million times over the course of the years. They keep it the same every year. Westmore's new hosting, so I've never been to that course. So I'd be interested to try it out and see what we could get out of that one, but I just kind of have to wait and see where I draw.
And what's been the history kind of at regional as far as kind of where you finished and what are your goals this year?
We want to take a whole team to state. That's always the end goal, is to take teams to state. And we do sell a lot of individuals. Last individual that I sent would have been Burt Miner's year. J.C. Davis went when she was a freshman. So we're kind of hoping to get more going over the next course of the years to where we can actually get those placers in state. But I'd like to take this entire team this year because we set at a pretty good spot with our boys, and our girls are coming along. They're progressing, probably not as much as they want to, and we probably have some varsity boys that aren't progressing as much as they want to, but it can be a good year. So we told them to hang in for one more race for us.
Yeah, and it's a grind in every sport, but I think with running it can certainly be. And what's it like when you get late in the year and you're in your postseason and those kids have been running almost every day? I mean, is it a grind for them? You start seeing that take its toll on them?
We use the word complacency. And it's easy to become so complacent when you're running the same thing, day in and day out. We're like, put on your shoes, we're going to go run mileage, and they want to go home. It's getting colder. They want to go do things, and yet we're still asking them to keep track and run even on the weekends and give us their time until after that regional race, and then hopefully state is over. 2 more weeks, we have a countdown, and so.
Well, that can be the next question I can ask. How hard is it adapting to weather when it comes to this? Because you're used to, like this year, we've had very unseasonably warm weather throughout much of the early fall, and now you've kind of gone a little colder. And when you do that, and especially I figure most time you're running in the mornings, correct?
We run actually 7th hour is what we've been running, so we run in dead.
But what about competitions?
Oh, the meets, it depends. I mean, we love them in the morning, but here lately they've been throwing them in the evenings for us, so they've been hot.
Yeah, but when it comes to the weather side of things, what's it like? Because I imagine you have a body adjustment because your body really hasn't adjusted to the colder weather yet.
Yesterday was a shell shock to a lot of them. They didn't bring we want to say dress appropriately, but we didn't know what appropriately was yesterday. We left and it was 70s, and then by the time that the boys ran at 6:15, the sun had went down and it got cold, and we had several of them that have asthma issues that it just exacerbated their symptoms. So it's hard. It's hard to get them geared for one extreme to the other. So we're always just like dress for everything and prepare for everything, and then what we get is what we get.
Well, and I mean, it's not even just the dressing for it. It's also how your body adapts. Like the breathing and stuff is different.
Hydration and breathing and everything. And yesterday was that meet where it was kind of like they threw them into elements that they weren't used to as far as weather and course-wise. We haven't seen those hills all year, and even the hills we run here in Ponca compared them nothing for that yesterday. So we did have a lot. We did prepare. We had them where they didn't suffer as much as far as their times, but The cold weather should be interesting today because it's even more seasonally cold than it has been at practice.
And you talk about running up hills. I mean, how much of a I mean, I see that. I mean, I had a hill at my house back when I was young, and we'd run up that hill. And I mean, yeah, it's different. Sometimes running down the hill can give you problems as well. So I mean, when you have something, and I know they're not doing steep hills, it's kind of a rolling type hill most of the time, but does it make a big difference?
Yes, it does. It's I mean, when you add hills and wind together, it significantly slows our time down. We added minutes to our times yesterday, and some of them were super frustrated. But looking at the elements, we tried to get them not to be so frustrated. But yesterday, it was almost like I had one kid came up to me yesterday that was on our team and asked, "Is it faster if I just roll down it?" Because that at that point, and so then get back up and run, because it was hard. I mean, they have to learn how to get their footing on the way downhill. Do they hold back? Do they let it go? Are they gonna fall? So it was a trial yesterday. We're just used to running on a hill over by the high school, and it's just straight up and down. And yesterday they kind of got the little, it looked like motocross track out there. And it was all hills, and so we know what we have to prepare for next year if it's held there again.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just interesting when you kind of look at the nuances when it comes to that, and that's the thing. Home track advantage can make a big difference on stuff like that. But,
absolutely.
But weather, hills, these are all small factors, and when you're talking about difference in placing could be milliseconds sometimes, right? I mean, it's certainly seconds at a lot of times. Those little things can make a big difference.
Absolutely, and you could tell yesterday, just even getting close to the finish line, there were some close finishes, just depending on how they took a hill and where their placement was, or if they got beat on hills, or if they passed people on the hills. We did have some that are just used to it. They run extra, and they run up and down hills, and they run on inclines on treadmills. They were able to pass 1 million people on the uphill, but then they would get passed on the downhill because of the fear. I mean, it is the fear of falling. I ran cross country for however many years, and when I'd run down hills, I'm like, is this the day I'm going to fall? You're unsure of your footing, if you're going to hit a bar.
Well, you're out there with your thoughts.
Yeah, and you just, it depends. And if there's a lot of people, am I going to get hit just right? Am I going to roll an ankle? Sometimes you let your thoughts get arrested.
And also I think you have the impact of, it's different if you're running up the hill physically again, because like I said, if you run up the hill, your thighs and stuff will burn a little bit. Yeah. So, maybe that takes it away when you're in that flat part of the course.
The little kind of the roller coaster aspect. Yeah. Overall, it was I thought it was a really good race yesterday. Do we want to do better? Absolutely. I think every coach is going to want to tell you that we wanted to hit our times yesterday, and we wanted to come away with that first place victory. But Choctaw's got some really good runners, and that have some faster times, and Enid, it's their home course, and so those are the teams that beat us. And would we have liked a better outcome? Absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to lie and say that I don't, but I was actually kind of proud of where they finished and that they gutted it out, because we didn't have anybody, quit. We had everybody try, and, they walked away a little disappointed in themselves. And I think that's at the time where they're getting so close to regionals that's okay, that they can see where they need to improve before next week, and then find it in their gut to get that one more race.
Yeah, and the last thing for you heading to this regional, we talked about the team aspect. Your goal is to get teams qualified for state, but let's talk about the individuals. You mentioned some of them that placed well. You don't know what weather, and you don't know what the hill, stuff like, especially Owasso's course, not necessarily Westmore's. But when you look at the regional, what do you feel like outside of the team, kind of the individuals? What do you think some of the goals are for maybe some of those kids?
I know with the girls, they race time, and they'll specifically say, I want to run this, and sometimes I think they get wrapped up in where they place and getting that medal, and that's what we're running for time, because at regionals it's the top 7 teams and then the next 7 people. And so if you're not one of the top 7 teams, you want to be one of those first 7 individuals, and then you go as an individual. So we're always telling them, hey, you're racing yourself, really. We're trying to get those times.
Now, when the 7 teams are there, if there's 7, so 8, 9, and 10, if those teams are already going, does that these people get to go, or does it?
Just the top 7. So if the 7 teams, it's those 49 individuals that are automatically geared going. So then it's the next 7 individuals from any of those other teams.
And so is there only 5? If, say, the team already has qualified their kids,
they automatically go.
No, I know. So it's basically if the top 7 individuals are all the teams that qualify, number 8 through 14 can go. For instance,
absolutely. Yeah. So if for instance, if one of my runners, we were the 8th place team and we didn't have a full team going, but Wesley or Adam or Diego or Brody or one of them finished high enough in that if they were the first 7 qualifiers, they would be able to go.
Yeah.
So it's a gut. And then you wait until that final.
Because I mean, you're also if a team is getting theirs, I mean, that team placing at a certain point could be the difference in you getting to go or not based on where those people. So I would imagine it's an interesting,
the most exciting
way.
And the most nail biting race that we run the entire year, because I mean they are giving it their all, and I'm not going to lie and say that I don't. I mean, Owasso course is tough, but they're familiar with it.
Yeah.
We ran there. Booker T hosted their race there this year, and we won. We won that meet. And so they're super familiar with the course. There won't be anything that'll catch them off guard. They know it front and back from running it over the years. So the familiarity, I think, would help us there. But I think they psych themselves out when we get who we're competing against.
Right.
And that's easy to do because there are some teams that have elite runners and they're gonna, you know, they're gonna compete at that higher level, but they're trying to separate those out. So it's just getting them to buy in and just go all out.
All right, well, Coach, really appreciate the time. Best of
Thank
luck
you.
at regionals coming
Absolutely.
up. That's Coach Wendy Landes. I want to say thanks to Chris behind the camera. This episode's been brought to you by Aftershave Barbering. And until next time, Jordan Woodruff saying so long for Coach's Corner, and go Cats.